The wrestling world has suffered casualties this year. While some were huge stars, others, though not the biggest names, still had an impact through their time in the industry. This is Wrestling Hub, and here are notable names in wrestling passed away in 2021. Before we get into the rest of the video, make sure you subscribe to Wrestling Hub and turn on all notifications to stay up to date with everything in the world of pro wrestling. Jim Crockett Jr. might be one of the biggest names in wrestling for the influence he had on the direction of pro wrestling. Dave Meltzer first reported that Crockett was in grave condition thanks to liver and kidney failure. He suffered for a few days before WWE announced his passing at the age of 76. In his career, he took over Jim Crockett Promotions from his father after his dad passed away in 1973. He would serve 3 times as NWA president between 1980 and 1991. In 88, unfortunately, he was forced to sell JCP to Ted Turner. There were quite a few wrestlers who reached new heights under the leadership that Crockett brought, including Ric Flair, the Four Horsemen, Ricky Steamboat, Harley Race, the Road Warriors, and Dusty Rhodes. It came as a shock that ex-WWE star Melissa Coates passed away on June 23rd at the age of 50. She was considered to be a trailblazer in bodybuilding and wrestling. Her fans know her as Super Genie, as she placed highly in Miss Olympia and Miss International events. She even ranked 9th in the world in women's bodybuilding. She could easily be spotted in various magazines such as Muscle and Fitness, Flex, Muscle Mag, Muscular Development, and Iron Man. She trained with Hall of Fame pro wrestler Killer Kowalski after she retired from bodybuilding. She then competed in WWE as well as independently. Melissa competed in the International Federation of Bodybuilding throughout the 90s. She became the manager of ECW legend Sabu, and they performed for various companies. Earlier this year, Melissa underwent a life-saving leg amputation that prevented her arteries from being clogged. A GoFundMe was initiated by the Impact Wrestling veteran to help pay for medical bills. Many reached out to Melissa with money, but sadly, she passed away. There are few names in wrestling that are known for being as much of an attraction as Paul Orndorff. He was known as Mr. Wonderful, and while his performances as a babyface will go down in history, it was his run as a heel that made him famous. His feuds against Hulk Hogan in 1986 and 87 attracted a lot of fans. In fact, they had a crowd of 76,000 in Toronto's big event. He was even a part of the first WrestleMania main event as he was teaming with Roddy Piper to take on Mr. T and Hogan. He had been diagnosed with dementia before his passing and died at the age of 71 on July 12th. Super Porky was a veteran of CMLL and AAA and was a part of WWE in the Juniors division in 2005, but the division did not last, so neither did his run. His son Psycho Clown said he passed away on July 26 following a heart attack. Joseph Hudson, aka Jocephus, was one of the most beloved wrestlers on the indies, with him most notably a part of the NWA. In February 2021, he passed away due to an undiagnosed medical issue at only 44 years old. It's with a heavy heart that I share that my friend and brother in wrestling, Joseph Hudson, has passed away suddenly from an as yet undiagnosed medical issue. NWA fans would know him as Jocephus as well as the Question Mark, where thanks to the great fans at GPB Studios in Atlanta, Joseph was able to receive the kind of support in the ring he'd always dreamt of. He is survived by a young son whom he loved dearly, and if anything would pain him about leaving this earth, it would be not being able to be there for his boy. Rest in peace, Joseph. Love to you and Godspeed. Nick Aldis revealed Joseph had an undetectable congenital heart defect. His final match saw him face the Rock and Roll Express while teaming with Aaron Stevens. He was also an important figure backstage, working in various roles. Jody, the Assassin Hamilton, might be one of the best wrestling villains. He portrayed the character by himself and alongside Tom Renesto as a part of the Assassins tag team. He had a Hall of Fame career in the ring, but was also one of the most important parts of Dusty Rhodes' WCW creative team. He was also the one to train wrestlers who went on to become big names from the power plant, such as Goldberg and Diamond Dallas Page. He passed away on August 3rd at 82, as shared by his son, Nick Patrick. Buddy Colt was an extremely efficient heel. Once a fan shot at him during a wrestling show. He was also very tough, surviving a plane crash that had injured Austin Idol and Gary Hart, and which killed Bobby Shane. He was injured in the crash but still wrestled a bit before he realized his career was at an end. I had to wear a steel brace, completely shattered my right ankle. I wrestled 3 matches after, all tag team matches, and I did very little. I realized pretty quickly that I couldn't perform in the ring any longer. He was a regular in Georgia Championship Wrestling throughout the 60s and 70s. However, he passed away on March 5th at the age of 85. Later in life, he was suffering from Parkinson's and dementia. Wrestling fans are familiar with Randy Orton and his father, Cowboy Bob Orton Jr., but Orton's uncle Barry wrestled in WWF, NWA, New Japan, Stampede Wrestling, and many other promotions. He was also a professional wrestler, but passed away on March 20th at 62. The cause of his death was not announced. Rusty Brooks, the fighter-turned-trainer, passed away on February 11th. Wrestling fans remember him as the burly wrestler who went up against Andre the Giant and Hulk Hogan in the 80s. While no cause has been disclosed, fans mourn the early death of this star. After all, he was only 63. He did have amputations on several toes in January this year. Trained by Jim Eiler and Boris Malenko, he made his wrestling debut in the World Wrestling Association in '82. His friends and colleagues remember him as one of the good guys in wrestling. They believe he deserved the kind of push stars like Bam Bam Bigelow received. In the early 80s, he squared off against Andre the Giant, Junkyard Dog, and Ricky Steamboat. Later in '85, a televised match featured Rusty against Hulk Hogan. He eventually left WWF, but Brooks and Jumbo Beretta claimed the tag team title for Global Championship Wrestling. He finally retired in '02 and opened the Rusty Brooks Pro Wrestling Academy. This is where he trained future stars Gangrel and MVP. Rusty's son Jay, or Jeff J-Dog Brooks, has followed his father's footsteps and become a wrestler. Ryan Sakoda was a former WWE star and had a great career. He spent a long time in promotions like UPW and XWF, but when he signed with WWE as enhancement talent in '03, it was clear it was meant to be. He was on SmackDown and was paired with Tajiri and Jimmy Wang Yang. He was in the company for a year and was eventually released in August 2004. However, he continued to wrestle until '07. He would also file a lawsuit against WWE in 2015, talking about serious injuries he had suffered. Those filing the lawsuit said WWE had known about brutal injuries their stars were suffering, but they had not cared. It went to the Supreme Court, where other cases surrounding CTE were turned into a major case, but they were eventually dismissed in 2020. At the age of 48, he passed away on September 2nd. The cause of his death is not known. Yet another popular wrestler passed away only at 59. Del Wilkes, aka The Patriot, passed away on July 1st after a heart attack. The Patriot had joined WWE in '97 after competing in other promotions, but he quickly became a fan favorite. He started to wear the colors of the American flag and wore it in a match against Bret Hart for the WWE Championship. His feud against the Hart Foundation was well noted. He had previously been a part of All Japan as well. He retired thanks to injuries and issues in his personal life, working as a car salesman instead. He had issues with the law thanks to his addiction to painkillers, getting arrested a total of 20 times, and was even imprisoned for 9 months for fraud related to a prescription. The world said goodbye to Hector Don Serrano on February 23rd. He was a longtime pro wrestler and occasional promoter. Tracing his history back, the 5'7", 220-pound Serrano came from separated parents, as he would spend time with his mother in New York and his father in Puerto Rico. He was definitely a well-respected wrestler, and his name came up in promotions everywhere, from Florida to Calgary to Montreal and Texas. He was also the Canadian Junior Heavyweight Champion and a Caribbean Tag Team Champ. Hulk Hogan's first opponent was none other than Serrano in August 1977. He was married to Olga Martinez, also known as the Mexican Spitfire. She worked as a wrestler for approximately 6 years, and they had 2 sons together. She later worked as a hairstylist. She passed away just a year before him in February 2020. The iconic Butch Reed made his debut in 1978. He wrestled in Kansas City, Florida, and St. Louis, but his defining moment was in 1983 when he joined Mid-South Wrestling. He then went on to join WWE in '86, where he became famous as the Natural Butch Reed. He might have never won a title, but he did compete for the Intercontinental Championship several times. He left WCW in '92, but continued to wrestle irregularly on the independent scene for 10 years. He even came out of retirement and continued wrestling from 2005 to 2011. The legend died on February 5th at the age of 66. 1956. He died of heart complications after suffering 2 major heart attacks this year. Tony Marino was 90 when he passed away on May 28th, most likely due to natural causes. The legend started wrestling in 1954 near his hometown of Rochester. Throughout his career, he has gone by a number of aliases. Australia knew him as Dino Lanza. Tony's first wrestling match was on January 31st, 1956 against Count Tony Verdi. It was only in September 1958 that he came to be called Tony Marino. The bulk of his career played out under this name. He would have opportunities to fight in Cleveland, other stops in Ohio, Massachusetts, and other eastern cities. Marino occasionally appeared in Georgia Championship Wrestling in 1959, where he lost in a bulk of preliminary matches, excluding the one against Gorgeous George on November 6. After he retired, he opened a construction company in Florida. Beautiful Bobby Eaton was viewed by Ric Flair and Stone Cold to be one of the best. He was also part of one of the greatest tag teams of all time, the Midnight Express. However, his life would come to an end on August 4th. He was only 62, but was going through a tough period, losing his wife only a month before. Daffney Unger passed away at the age of 46 in September. The wrestling world came together when it was clear Daffney needed help. She streamed live on Instagram, where she became emotional and made it clear she was struggling. In the video, she also talked about how she wanted her brain to be donated for CTE testing in Boston. WWE stars and legends like Mick Foley tried to reach out. On top of that, Unger had recently moved to a new place, which made it difficult for anyone to know where she was, including local authorities. TMZ noted that police were unable to find where she was living before the news was broken by family. A report from Gwinnett County, Georgia's medical examiner's office confirmed she had passed away, and a report from the police department indicated this was due to an alleged gunshot wound to the chest. In her career, she worked with WCW and Impact, where she was a part of a feud with the Beautiful People. Known for being violent to an excessive degree, New Jack made his name in ECW, where he was ready to take dangerous bumps. He often shot at his opponents. In the 1996 mass transit incident, where a wrestler who lied about his age entered the ring with him, only to get viciously cut open. It would later turn out that the boy was only 17. He also had issues with others, once stabbing a wrestler several times during a match because he had hit him with a stiff move. Still, the wrestler is seen as a hardcore legend. At only 58, he passed away on May 14th from a heart attack in his home. And these were wrestlers who died in 2021. I hope you're all having a great day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later.